Welcome to the first ever UK Automation Forum, which has been formed to create a community of leading experts and businesses to discuss challenges and topical issues relating to the adoption of automation and robotics in the UK. This is our first event, as we're saying, our launch event, so very exciting. The forum has been created by Automate UK, the brand new umbrella organisation for the trade bodies PPMA, BARA and UKIVA. And to tell you more about its remit and why it's happening, let's hear from Peter Williamson, the CEO of Automate UK. Peter.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, so the group of associations has decided to rebrand to Automate UK. And the main reason being is that automation is the central thread that joins up those associations. And clearly automation is so important in the future of UK manufacturing. So the reason why we decided to come up with the UK Automation Forum is to reach out to other associations and other groups and organisations to bring together a group of like-minded individuals that are experts within the industry to talk about the challenges that we face and the opportunities that exist within UK manufacturing. So today, as you mentioned, we've got a number of experts here from the likes of MTA, MTC and from Make UK, to really talk through the challenges and the opportunities and have a call to action for how we move forward and how we have greater adoption of automation and robotics in the UK.
Brilliant, thank you. And chairing the event and the forum going forward is Mike Wilson, who is an expert on robots, has been for many years, and works at the MTC now, but is going to chair this forum going forward. Mike, can I ask you about, we've gone through the why, let's talk about the how we think this forum is going to make a difference.
Thank you, Gail. So I think UK manufacturing faces a number of challenges, really around things like productivity, achieving net zero, and also building our sovereign manufacturing capability. And robots and automation, or the adoption of robots and automation, are a key element in terms of actually addressing those major challenges. And the reason we're getting together is because there isn't enough discussion. I don't think there's enough awareness of where we actually are in terms of the adoption of this technology, and the fact that we're significantly behind the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is accelerating away from us in terms of the adoption of this technology. And if we're going to have a successful, prosperous manufacturing sector that will provide a positive contribution to the UK economy, we need to address that challenge. And we think as part of that, we need to get the right people together to talk about these issues, to talk about the barriers and the way we can address those barriers, so that we can ensure that the politicians, the people that make our policies going forward, understand the issues and why they need to do something about it. So what we're looking to do is to get groups of people together in the way that we have done here today, so that we can make sure that we can put those messages into the policymakers. We can help change the strategy, if you like, of the UK, so that we can make sure that people understand why they should be using more automation robotics, and make sure that we have the environment right to enable companies to do it. So we're hoping to change the dial, really, in terms of the discussion and the adoption of robots and automation within UK manufacturing. And it's very important, as Peter said, that we get various experts together to do that. So it isn't just our opinion. We get people that are actually working at the coalface, as it were, to give their opinions as well, and make sure that we can get that message into the people that can change the policies.
Brilliant, thank you. So for our first event, we've talked about our expert panel. Let's meet them. So I'm going to go left to right. So I'm going to start with James. James, tell us who you are.
Thank you very much, Gail. My name's James Selker, and I'm the CEO of the Manufacturing Technologies Association, which is a cluster of AMUK, the EIA, and we also happen to own and run the National Show for Engineering and Manufacturing that happens every 2 years at the NEC, and the next edition is going to be in April 2024.
And that's MAC.
And that is indeed MAC.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I just thought I'd mention that. Nina, tell us about yourself.
Hello, I'm Nina Griff. I'm a Senior Policy Manager from Make UK. Make UK is a trade association representing around 20,000 manufacturers in the UK. We champion manufacturing, help manufacturers to grow, innovate, and decarbonize their businesses. We also provide services for manufacturers, help with HR and employment law, and also trained apprentices in the UK.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan.
Hello, my name's Jonathan Thacker, Operations Director at the Walsall Wheelbarrow Company. We introduced automation back in 2012. We actually manufacture over 3,000 wheelbarrows a day now. That is mainly due to the added automation over the last 11 years.
So we've got Jonathan here because he's proof of the pudding, basically, because he has indeed, as an SME, adopted automation and his business is thriving, and you'll be hearing a lot from him as we go on. Oliver, I haven't introduced you.
Yeah, thanks, Gail. So my name's Oliver Selby. I'm Head of Sales at Fanuc UK. Keen automation advocate, and also really passionate about education around automation at all levels. So again, I'd love to sort of talk about that today and understand how education can help us in the future.
Sure, brilliant. What we're doing now is the overall umbrella title of this event is automation, how will greater adoption benefit UK PLC? Not something that everyone believes, as we will continue with, but let's start off by asking, we're going to set the scene, basically, where we are now, which obviously is not where we want to be, but where we are now. So I'm going to, first of all, talk to James, or ask James, because we're going to say, we all know we lag behind the rest of the world, but why is that?
Well, I think it's a number of reasons, Gail. The first one that springs to mind is the fact that we've been relatively spoilt in the last sort of 20 or 30 years in having a very skilled, flexible workforce available to us, unlike our European or indeed international peers. And I think, therefore, there's been less incentive to up the ratio of robots and automation within UK manufacturing. So if you take Sweden, for example, they were always very early adopters because they live in a very large country with very few people. Yeah. And so it wasn't really a choice for them. And I think as this conversation unfolds, I think we'll be able to set out reasons why it's not an option for us either. There is also complexities behind finance, which I'm glad to say is improving hugely. And also, of course, education. Absolutely key. We did a survey with Lloyd's a few years ago, and they surveyed all the manufacturers that in their of their manufacturing customers. And the biggest barrier to technology investment, including automation, of course, was the inability to have the skills to acquire and deploy technologies that they know will help them. And so that's there in black and white and obviously downloadable from our website for free.
Okay, thank you. Nina, I think you wanted to say something in this area.
I do. I also do think that there's some positivity and the environment looks quite optimistic at the same time. So manufacturers have transformed their businesses hugely in the past decade, especially in the past couple of years, driven by the pandemic and the changes in trading post-Brexit, the rising cost of running business. So they had to do something, and quite a lot of them, 40% of manufacturers that we talk to, are in this evolution stage, which means they investing, they looking, they adopting some sort of digital technologies. However, there is still 20% of manufacturing businesses who don't do anything. And also, manufacturing sector is quite diverse in the UK. So we have a lot of SMEs. Some SMEs are very agile and innovative and have the resources, and some are still slightly lagging behind. We also have the large, innovative, global, fantastic manufacturers in the UK as well. So we need to address that. There is, I think, what would help manufacturing businesses to adopt and invest in digital technologies and automate would be to have a coherent plan, industrial strategy for the business, a clear vision where they want to go, everything connected, so like skills, funding, infrastructure, all connected with the focus on different regions, because different regions have different resources and different needs. So yeah, it's very complex. Yeah. But yes.
I'm going to come back to you because you're the success. Let's go through the terrible bits first. Oliver, I'm going to come to you about what you believe are the barriers, some of the main barriers that.
Yeah, I think there's a general probably lack of commitment in making the decision to automate. That's probably the first big barrier. I think having every stakeholder within a business in the decision-making process at least, fully educated, fully understanding what automation can do for them, is probably the first big step we can take and sort of hurdle that barrier, if you like. It's quite a difficult one because obviously businesses run to find time to sit back and actually think about business strategy, think about automation, how it may affect you. It takes time, and not many people have got much time, unfortunately. We're all busy. But I think that's the main one. The next one will be finance. I think the UK, compared to our European international counterparts, tends to have quite a short outlook, a short-term strategy in terms of investment for automation and capital equipment. Typically, we see sort of a less than 2-year payback required in the UK, compared to, say, Sweden and Germany at 3 to 5 years, if not longer. I think even Jonathan there sort of mentioned that his payback on some of the equipment that he's purchased in the past has been over 5 years, which has allowed him to actually automate. So a real step forward for your business, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I think businesses look too short term, and we tend to, because we're a family business, we make quick decisions, but it's all based on long term, which is 5 to 7 years rather than 1 or 2 years some businesses work on.
Yeah. Because you haven't got shareholders and...
That's right. There's only 3 directors, so we can make quick decisions.
Yeah.
And we've got the flexibility to do that.
It's like Warburton's.
Exactly.
As a business.
Exactly.
Family firm.
Yeah.
They invest a lot, I know that.
Go, can I just add a point to that, if
please
I may?
Do.
But so I think one of the challenges that kind of underlies all of these things is cultural. I like to quote a report that the All-Party Parliamentary Manufacturing Group put together probably about 6-7 years ago now, and they called the report Making Good, and they were looking at the culture of UK manufacturing. And I like to summarise the report in a couple of sentences, which basically is that in the UK we're very proud that we keep all of our old machines running, whereas in Germany they're very proud that they bought new ones. Yes. And I've said that phrase to lots of seminars and conferences over the last 6 years, and I always get nods and smiles, and nobody's ever disagreed. And I kind of think that's where the manufacturing, the industrial strategy comes in. We need the leadership of this country to change that culture, because individual businesses like Walsall Wheelbarrow can do their own bit, as it were, but how do we change everybody? And that shifting that culture is the big challenge, and that's what we're hoping to achieve with this group.
I think that's one of the biggest factors why we went into automation in the first place. As I said, it was 11 years ago when we started to move into automation, and we had a big decision at the time. Our existing plant was getting tired and old, so we needed either to make a new investment or a decision to mothball the whole of the manufacturing side and buy from the Far East.
Okay.
Which would always looks at as the easier option. But we had, my late father was a driving force. He was 72 at the time, and he was a driving force in us putting automation into the factory. And the first step was always obviously the hardest, but after that it was just like evolution, and the culture of the whole business. I know you've touched on introducing new technology to all businesses, and that was the case for us.
So how did your employees react when was that the fear of
Yeah.
am I out the door?
Yeah, I mean it's all to do with managing change and managing the culture. Again, we're lucky. We're a family business. We're in the factory every day. We're not sitting up in our ivory tower or whatever. All about communication, all about trust. We have got a proud record that we've never made any redundancies through automation. We've actually grown the business through automation because we've become more competitive. So we've won a lot of business through how we work, how our strategy works.
Yeah.
And we're the only UK manufacturers of wheelbarrows now. And we've got probably, I think it's 60% of the market.
Because people trust your product
Exactly,
produced here.
Yeah.
So
the UK stamp is still
So
massive.
11 years ago, you got to the point you were saying, tell us about Walsall Wheelbarrow originally, you got to that point.
As I said, we were a family business. We started in 1995, but my father had been in wheelbarrows for over 30 odd years at the time. Me and my brother had just finished university, and there was an opportunity given to us by our family to start up Walsall Wheelbarrows. Obviously, at that time, it was all longhand. It was a typical sort of metal bashing black country business. But we knew where we wanted to go even from that stage. And we developed like a 5-year plan. Every 5 years, we wanted to get to somewhere. And obviously, 2011, we'd built up the plant and machinery. But as I said, that was getting tired. The tooling was getting tired. And we decided, what are we going to do now? Are we going to look at the Far East and import parts and then just see us as an assembly?
Right, yeah.
But through the family's belief that we are manufacturers, you can't obviously rule, your heart can't rule your head. But we asked ourselves, how can we retain the manufacturing base and become obviously not just competitive, but even more competitive than our competitors? And automation was the obvious answer. We've obviously had a lot of support from people like Oliver over the years. We've had a lot of financial support from the banks.
Yeah.
Because I think they've got trust with us. And going back to our employees, it's just about communication, telling them the truth, looking them in the eye and saying, we're going to do this project next year. They go, oh, no, not again, sort of thing.
Yes,
but they know, don't change anything else. But it's all about trust and communicating with people, telling them how it is and why we're doing it. And that gets them on board then.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking about, what are one of my questions down here was, what are people scared of, that won't commit to automation? I mean, Peter, your background is, and your company is a cobot company,
Yep.
Collaborative robots for anyone. And so did you find this with the, there's that fear factor?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's two things on this. First of all, businesses need to look at automation as being what's appropriate for them as a business. And sometimes automation seems like a big, scary word, but for a certain business, just installing a conveyor is automation. They're automating moving something from point A to point B. And that might be appropriate for them and all they need within their business to move that forward. And it's a simple, easy step into developing perhaps more and more automation moving forward. The other thing, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, things like the cobot coming along, new technology, it's an entry-level piece of equipment potentially. It breaks down some barriers. It make it seem more achievable and affordable for people to get into automation. And hopefully the next step is a more and more automated plant or production facility that is, as competitive as Walsall Wheelbarrow has become, and and a really good example of how taking that technology forward can really help you.
Yeah. So you must have been smiling during COVID, where no one could import anything, and you're sitting there chugging away, making your stuff.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. That was obviously a massive advantage for us. We were obviously being able to retain the manufacturing. We did over 430,000 wheelbarrows in 2021, which was, I think our record previously was 350,000 the previous year. We had no problem in terms of stock. We also buy all our tube, our steel, our plastics from local suppliers.
Okay, yep.
So supply chains, it did cause obviously some problems, but we were never let down. So we thank our suppliers as much as our good fortune of having automation in those years. It's also affected over the last couple of years because obviously demand for wheelbarrows has dropped dramatically. So we've been able to reduce the use of the machinery in the plant. Whereas if you were forecasting, your quantities to the Far East, you've either have a situation of overstocking.
Yeah.
Again, cash flow for a family business is very important, so we control our stocks very tightly. Too tightly, some people say, but but also obviously you've got the problem, the issues of having no stock.
Yeah.
When you're talking to the big retailers like the B&Qs, and they in COVID years they came on and said, "Can we have 10,000 wheelbarrows this week?" We can say yes.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were importers, you'd say, "Oh, can you wait 12 weeks until we get the orders in and wait for, and hopefully the Chinese docks don't shut down because of the COVID outbreaks." And if the container company turns round, instead of going to the UK, goes to Belgium, we might be delayed there as well.
Yeah.
But we can give them a definite answer. So it's all about control and flexibility, and that's obviously automation gives us that.
Yes, more than just producing in the factory, it has a massive effect on your
That's
business.
right. Yeah, massive, yeah.
Okay, no, loving all this. Right, any downsides?
Can I just go back quickly to the still staying in on the benefits, because I think it was such a great example of increasing efficiency and productivity, and we have so much, evidence is just there. We have 60% of manufacturers believe in increases the productivity. It's a huge number, and efficiency the same. It has a huge impact on waste management as well. So there's a lot.
Yeah, we work. We work an 8-hour shift at Walsall Wheelbarrows, but the robots work 24 hours a day. So we just lock up the factory and leave them
be.
clanging away.
Yeah.
The parts do when they drop down. Because when I walk over to the car park, I'm just listening. I know it's working, but the one concern obviously when you're running 24 hours a day and you're not there, you're only there. Well, I'm there more than 8 hours, but 10 hours or whatever. So, what about if there's a problem with it during the operation? Yeah. There might be, but as I said, we've been working with robots for 11 years, and I can count on one hand when I've come back in the morning with issues, and that's normally related to the material rather than the machinery.
Right, okay.
There might be like a weld seam on a piece of tube that's not right.
What I can add to that is that actually going forward in the future, the current technology is improving, so it can flag up when it may be having problems with material.
Yeah, things like that, yeah.
It can start talking to you, give you a text in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's just what you want.
Even if there was a problem with material, there's we've got seam finders and things like that in part of the machine. So it doesn't actually damage the machinery, it just stops it. So I'm a bit disappointed if it's not a full rack. But as I said, it's very seldom that that counts.
James?
I just wanted to point out, Gail, that this is a superb illustration of not only the opportunity that awaits UK manufacturing in general, but it's such a vital part of decarbonisation, because obviously local manufacture, high productivity, and also wealth creation. Your suppliers are local. You're able to support your business model because you manufacture, not I'm a manufacturer, I therefore deserve to exist. And this idea of being able to make to demand is a question that hasn't been raised enough in terms of decarbonisation. If you can make not only to specification to demand viably, you can also make the quantities to demand viably. And if you can do that, all the overproduction, the stocking that you would do from importing from low-cost countries who are probably generating their energy from coal-fired power stations, for example, this is massive. And it's as carbon taxes, which will inevitably happen either directly or indirectly, there are good business reasons for doing the right thing. It's just an enormous opportunity for UK manufacturing in general. We've really got a sort of once in a generational opportunity, if you like.
Well, it saves energy costs because robots work in the dark as well.
Yeah.
They don't need lights.
And maybe just to add to that, if I could, I think that there's been a perception that robots and automation is really appropriate for the automotive industry or the aerospace industry. And likewise, there's been a perception that we don't manufacture much in the UK anymore. And this is a realisation that, yes, we still do manufacture quite a lot in the UK, but there's a significant opportunity by the use of automation to make that much more effective. And as James says, make it much more appropriate to today's environment. And actually to bring back some of the things that we used to make here, bring them back to the UK using automation to enable that, and actually provide a positive overall contribution to all areas of kind of UK society through jobs and so on.
As Walsall World, we're slightly to blame on that because I don't think we sort of spread the word because we're quite insular in the West Midlands, I think. We don't, it was that localised. But we don't seem to beat the drum as much as what we should do, really, as a company. I mean, we do in terms of the sales, our customers, we love to get our customers around our factory because, or existing and new customers, because as soon as they see Walsall Wheelbarrows, they remember it for the rest of the days, and it wins us orders, 100%. Rather than going into big warehouses full of stock and all this is, these are your wheelbarrows, and these they can actually see them being made, and they're fascinated. Every customer who comes to or supplier comes to our place, they say, I didn't realise you did that.
But you're not alone. Yeah. You are absolutely not alone. Engineers in general like to hide their light under a bushel. And that's one of the reasons why, as a not-for-profit organisation ourselves, like many around the table, we are very keen to, for example, take the fear away from the investment. So at our MAC show in 2024 in April, we have worked with the MTC, we've worked with many of the major robot suppliers, including FANUC, to create what we call a knowledge hub for automation and robotics. So people can go in without being sold to and just see some examples of, for example, automation of old equipment. So you don't have to replace all your equipment to start the journey for automation. There's various massive amount of different forms. And we think it's really important so people can start to get a basic understanding before they engage with potential suppliers so that they can quickly find solutions. It's really important. We're also doing a show called the Engineering Supply Chain Show, which is going to be alongside MAC for the middle 3 days, which does exactly what you were saying, shines a light on the finest UK's. It's only open to UK companies, which is unique. And we're working with Mate UK, we're working with Bara. Again, if we're going to succeed on taking advantage of this opportunity nationally, we need to continue to be part of the community and work together.
I think it's a confidence issue, really. I mean, we were lucky internally that, as I said, my father was the one who gave us the confidence to do these sort of projects. And once you started one, obviously that grows and grows. So it is definitely confidence.
The older person had to convince the two younger sons.
It was a bit of a character there for my dad. It was brilliant. But it is. But he had as I said, he was 72 at the time. He had days off, and me and Simon were working day in, day out in the factory, or well, in the office, but in the business.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't see the wood.
Yeah.
And it's if you got like we was managing director, if come in and said, I think you're doing that wrong. And obviously we listened to him, hopefully, and we put it right, sort of thing. Yeah. These machines are getting old.
So how did you start? How did you, you thought, right, okay, I think we need some automation or something.
Yeah.
Have the relationship with FANUC.
We worked with a company, a tube bending company we'd previously worked with, and they're the ones who introduced us to their automation. But we found it themselves. We just once we did that one project, the big projects were the actual the pan of the wheelbarrow, the press line there, and that's when we first introduced it. So it was through our press people, our tooling people, who obviously work with FANUC in other areas. We, as a small business, we benefit from a lot of skilled resources from our tool makers. Obviously, they work with, the car companies, and Unison work with plane companies for tube bending. So as a small company, we get all that sort of experience as well, and that's what we pay for really, and that's what they support us. So we're very lucky. I always say they're part of our success is all our suppliers and the customers as well, slightly, but they're more difficult. But we work very closely with that. We have to, because being a small business, we can't just employ somebody just to do automation. Do the projects.
Sure.
And obviously, me and Simon have to run the business on a day-to-day basis, so we rely on people like Oliver to point us in the right direction.
Yeah, so that direction really is something that we can help with as an OEM robot supplier. There's also lots of UK integrators of robotic and automation equipment that can help support that initial step. Yes. And really for me, that initial step is to understand the challenge, which you had 11, 12 years ago, and then really understand how automation robotics can actually help mitigate some of those challenges that you have. The first step is normally to try and pull together a specification, a user requirement specification that you can then say, okay, Mr. Robot Integrator or Mr. Robot OEM, please can you go and find a way of solving my problem, and yes, there may be things on the shelf already that can help support that. There are many companies out there providing off-the-shelf solutions for machine tending, for palletizing, for all sorts of different things across the different, say, spectrums of UK manufacturing. And if nothing does exist off the shelf, then there's lots of companies there that will do bespoke solutions as well. And they will generally
and I don't
work.
think that ought to put people off either, bespoke options.
No.
Because there's some great experts who can sort of guide you in the right direction for bespoke. We're looking at one at the moment to fully automate our wheelbarrow assembly line, like the final stage of the process. And there's I wouldn't have a clue, to be honest, to put a robot on there. But obviously there's people like Oliver and his team who can actually guide us through and actually make it work, really.
And maybe just to add to that, because I know one of the fears that smaller businesses have is actually engaging with the supply chain, because they're kind of nervous because they're stepping into something new, and they don't want to end up buying something that isn't
buying
appropriate.
the wrong thing.
So, with all due respect, Oliver, but there are independent organisations out there. So, BARA, for example, MTC, we're there to help, and that's what the Mac demonstration feature is about, is showing people how they can get help from independent organisations to actually get them started on that journey, so that we can help reduce the risk, if you like, and take that fear away that they may end up heading in the wrong direction, and I think that's important. And I think Jonathan made a good point, and I completely understand that to smaller businesses that have done it successfully, we're very keen to try and find ways to help them spread that word, as it were, to everybody else out there. Now, we all know that we're very grateful that Jonathan's given up his time today to be here, because he's running a business and he has to make money. But the more we can get that word out there, that there are businesses out there that have done it successfully, and it is very appropriate, particularly for the SMEs, then it'll hopefully encourage more people to make that journey. But I would just want to stress that, please, the first step is to reach out and ask. And we just need to get more UK businesses to make that very first step.
It's reducing the risk, isn't it, basically? That's because if you, as a small business, if you invested, say, £500,000 worth of kit and it doesn't work, you've lost your business.
Yeah.
So that's the fear factor.
You mentioned downsides earlier ago, and I think it's hard to actually say that there's a downside to automation, because you'd be hard pressed to say that there is, but there's definitely challenges.
Yeah.
A challenge is making smaller businesses understand that risk is worth taking, and it's not as significant as they think it may well be. But it's about education and about training, and I think educating end users to understand what's available to them and what they can use is important. But I think having more of these experts that we talked about, having more integrators, having more businesses that can install and deploy robotics and automation is absolutely key. And I think we can't be Germany, we can't be Sweden, because culturally we're slightly different. But we can be a damn sight better version of the UK than we currently are. And so, if you go to somewhere like Germany, when people are looking at producing a product, they're looking at how they can automate the production of that product. Now, we need to adopt that thinking far more in the UK. And yes, we're still the UK. We still sort of quite high-end products and whatever it may be, high technology. But I think we need to make sure that the skills and the knowledge base in the UK are far more aligned with these major manufacturing nations, and start thinking more like them to adopt these technologies.
I think you're right, but I don't think, like you said earlier, I don't think you can impose the German model onto the UK model, because I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
We're culturally different, and our decision making is sometimes different. But I think we need to be more long-term thinking. I think I was talking to Oliver earlier, and companies saying 1 to 2 year payback. I couldn't believe that, to be honest. I think that's total short-termism, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean I'm trying to think what you would get payback on.
Yeah.
1 to 2 years.
And in terms of financially, I mean, we've been supported quite heavily with our bank. They've really supported us through every project we've done, which is also an important factor. And I think some people lack confidence actually going to the bank and saying, this is what we want to do. Can you help me fund it, or how can we fund it?
Sure. Because, I mean, you sort of, when you think of that, you think, banks just say no, or they don't understand it. I was thinking when you were talking, I can't remember who was saying about convincing everyone in a business, not just the engineer, but the MD or the CEO or the whatever.
That education piece for me,
the person who signs the check or says yes,
it's from the very bottom to the very top, because and it's a different education that's needed, of course.
Yes.
But to get agreement and buy-in to automate, it does need everyone in a business to agree that that's the right way forward.
The IT team as well.
The IT team, that's the next digital challenge.
For sure. But I think that's true, isn't it? It's if you're the person signing the check or answering to the board, you don't really care how the machine works. You want to know that it's going to produce more, or it's going to be more reliable, or it's that they're the benefits they want. They don't care how you get there. It's like the computers, or when IT comes down, or can you fix my computer? And they start talking you through it. I'm going to stop you there. I don't really care. I just would like it to be fixed.
I might actually challenge that and say that actually the people that actually write the checks, the financial people within the business, don't really care how it performs. They care that it pays back within 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And actually,
that's the education needed.
Exactly that. And I think the reality is that if you look at the total cost of ownership over the course of a piece of equipment's life, that might be 5, 10, 15, 20 years, Let's look at that rather than a payback in 2 years, because most companies, even if they're subcontracting, they might have short-term contracts with their end customer. But the reality is that piece of equipment will continue to manufacture for the next 5, 10, 15 years beyond their initial contract. So actually it's got a much higher value to the business than it has for those first 2 years or 3 years.
It's just long term.
That is often an objection, though, isn't it, for people not wanting to invest, because particularly retailers will chop and change suppliers quite quickly.
You're absolutely right. And the other thing we've seen, predominantly in, say, supermarket, food, packaging, is that everyone's moving towards, say, a shelf-ready package, which isn't actually necessarily designed for automation. These loose lid lift-off boxes are very difficult to handle unless they're fully wrapped with plastic or case wrappers or tape. It's kind of like it's not really worked for us as an automation company.
But it works for them in their last mile, doesn't
it means that they can put things on
mile from the back of the store to the front. James?
On the optimistic side, if I may, I think for the first time, our UK culture of being disruptive thinkers and being very innovative, but not always had the best reputation for being able to competitively mass produce things, unlike some of our European neighbours. Because of this amazing manufacturing technology and the robotics and automation included in that, but not exclusively, this ability to be able to make flexibly, viably, actually plays to our cultural strength, with the big exception of we have to learn to be longer term thinkers for sure. But apart from that fundamental point, I think that really the way we think, that disruptive way of thinking, it could really play to our strength. And in fact, as I think Mike was saying, if we could make the UK more manufacturing minded, I think we would really gain the benefits enormously, not just from supply chain resilience, but from increased specialist exports, because we're not going from globalization to deglobalization, we're going to a partial deglobalization because of all those factors, because of the need for supply chain resilience, because of the need of carbon reduction, etc. And I think that we are so well placed as a country to benefit from that. And on the subject of a manufacturing, an industrial strategy, which I think we've all been asking for a long time, if we could take a step even further back from that and say, what we need is an economic vision of which is recognised within that the importance of the manufacturing community to be able to affect that, then we're really going to be winning.
I think, not being political, I think it's a lot to do with the obviously government policies as well. On the last budget they got 25% capital gains. I mean, that really should be 100%. If you want to reduce that risk in terms of the initial investment, I think more support from that could help UK manufacturing as well.
I think in terms of short-termism, they're
that's
the masters, aren't they?
That's the only problem,
But maybe
whichever party.
So just to sort of add to what James was saying, if I may, I think the issue is the long-term vision. That kind of goes back to the cultural problem that I mentioned earlier. And the SMEs that certainly I've come across that have significantly invested in automation, the decisions and the drive has come from the top. It's come from the owners, the managers, not from lower down in the organisation. And the challenge has often been, how do we convince the people with the checkbooks? And those that are convinced go away and do it. But how do we get the message into all of the others? And some things that we've been working on over the years, both through MTC and BARA, is trying to talk to the banks and trying to encourage the bank staff, the bank managers that talk to manufacturing, to positively go to their contacts, which are the finance guys, to talk about automation and why they should be doing it. Because my personal view is that they should be sitting there and they should be knocking on the door of the engineering manager and saying, why aren't we buying robots? Because if you think longer term, automation is the right answer. It is the way to ensure that you have a profitable, sustainable, long-term business. And it should be driven by the finance people, not the engineers.
The finance people, and if I may say, also the OEMs, because generally people do what their customers would like them to do. And so the OEMs have been absolutely amazing in this country to be able to develop supply chains, help teach them, tell them where the demand is, where to invest and so forth, and what quality standards to work to. And that can't be underestimated. And I think that if we add on to that, this encouragement and education from the OEMs down through their supply chain to encourage them to automate, I think it's a sort of multi-pronged approach, because I think your idea about the banks is brilliant.
And I think the banks, they look at automation as something they don't particularly understand, and they almost try and apply like an asset finance kind of model to it. So they're happy to potentially support the purchase of a robot, but the purchase of the robot might only be a part of the installation. There might be additional programming and bespoke things around it,
tooling,
which is harder for
finance tooling,
and it's harder for them to justify the finance on it, because if you know, the risk is that that's bespoke for that particular project, and if they want to get their money back, they can sell off the assets, but there's no asset to sell off there. And I think, going to both James and Mike's point, that actually adopting automation secures productivity, it secures the ability to make profit, which actually enhances your ability to be able to repay things. So the risk is less that the business will go under, because it's actually much more productive, more profitable. So it's just a shift of mindset that's needed a bit from the bank as well, to look at the ability to repay rather than the risk if they can't. And I think that's a mindset shift that needs to happen within the banks as well.
We do see some change there, we do see some change there, in that we've got banks and also private investors also now investing in integrators directly for robots as a service.
Okay.
So actually rent a robot as such, you know, that's a key change in the way that obviously robots are potentially offered to the market. But what it does mean is that those products are made for a particular application, whether it's machine tending or palletizing, for example, which can be redeployed if at the end of that rental period the customer has either lost the contract or wants to move it on. You know, they can be redeployed somewhere. That makes it easy for a finance company or a private investment company to actually take and actually put some cash into that business. So things are changing.
Yeah, well, that's good news. Slowly, but yes. Right, I think we were going to look at some of the myths and the main one, of course, is that robots take jobs. That is what everybody believes.
Well,
but I'm going to bring you in first here, because as a person who has indeed...
I think I said earlier, in our case, it's actually created employment.
Yeah.
As I said, we've become more competitive, so we've won more business. So we have we've actually also upskilled our guys on the shop floor as well. P2 is in charge of all our robots. When he started with the company, he was a forklift truck driver. So over the 10 years, he's learned from Oliver and other suppliers how to program robots. So it's actually improving their CV in the end of the day.
Well, I was just going to say, so one of my second myths was robots are hard to program. We don't have the in-house skills.
That could be a problem, but obviously, as I said earlier, our suppliers, our service side gives us that backup. And if we have any issues, obviously we've got somebody to turn to sort the problems out. But again, because we're high volume, we don't have a different amount of programs for each robot. It's basically doing the same job every day.
Yeah.
So in terms of once it's programmed with a few fine tuning. So it could be an issue, but you get around it by using outside people to help. And I think again, it's finding those people as well. You know, the initial thing is, where do I start? I want to automate, but where do I start?
Yeah.
If you look at a process that that Jonathan and his business would be doing, something like welding, you're talking about robots taking jobs, or there not being the skills to program the robots. Well, welders are not particularly easy to come by, right? Okay,
no.
So
nobody wants to do production welding anymore. So, I mean, I've got two production welders who have been with me since we started the company, but I'll never employ another production welder. It's obviously going to. We've got 3 automated cells for robot welding, and that's the way we're going to go.
Absolutely, and it's a skill that's becoming, I guess, harder to find in the UK. But if you can take that skill of understanding the welding process, one welder can oversee 6 robot welders, and they can understand the process, and they can increase productivity and output. And you're kind of improving the skills around the robot at the same time as you're.
I think on the welding side, as well as the welders who are available, obviously you go into the larger companies as well. Who probably offer more of a package financially, and I wouldn't blame them, to be honest. But so we're on the sort of the bottom rung in terms of employing welders.
Engineering in particular, if you come out of uni with a great engineering skill, you're probably going to want to work for Red Bull, aren't you?
Yeah. People like
Not
that.
work on flow wrappers or.
Sorry, Mike. I would add to that in that as technology improves, technology is actually starting to replace some of those skills that are needed. So you've got the advent of AI. AI will help support your welding process in the future. It will be a case of you almost tell the robot, you've got a piece of tube and you've got a piece of flat. They need to be welded together, and the robot will go and inspect it with a camera. It'll understand what it needs to be joined, and it'll work out what the path is, and also put the welding parameters in. That will be driven by software, driven by AI, and driven by somebody else's understanding, knowledge from somewhere else in the world, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
And maybe younger people as well, being attracted in to work
technologies,
on more digital. Xbox generation, as you have said before.
That's a key point. I want to cover 2 points now, if I may, but I think you've raised a very important point there, is we need to encourage the younger generations to come into manufacturing, and they don't want to do the menial, the dirty, the dangerous jobs that maybe the older generations have historically done. The only way we're going to get these guys into UK manufacturing is to utilize technology and then get them to develop that and use it and program it and so on. That's the kind of attraction that will get these guys into our manufacturing shop floors. Can I just go back to the jobs thing? Because I think that really is one of the big issues in the UK. There is a small subcontract fabricating business down in Kent, Contracts Engineering. I happen to know the owner of that business, Troy Barrett, and he will regularly stand on platforms and talk about robots don't replace jobs, they fill vacancies. And that's the issue today. And I know Make UK and Nina can definitely talk about the number of vacancies that we have in UK manufacturing.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to address the current vacancies that we have is by looking at more automation, because we're not going to bring in thousands of people into the country. That's just not going to happen anymore.
So we do have the labour shortages that manufacturers have been struggling with. So we do have 79,000 vacancies in
79,000
in the UK, ready to be filled. It's larger than any other sector in the UK. And so what Troy has done in his business as well, we know his case quite well as well. It was a lot about the culture, how to win people over. He reskilled and upskilled all of his workers. Now I think he just recently got a second robot. So he keeps investing. From the evidence that we've done from the research and conversation with manufacturers, there's no evidence of redundancies, of people losing jobs. There is the need for higher skilled workers, definitely. What Oliver said about all these new technologies, there'll be definitely more drive through it there. And the lower skilled workers seem to be upskilled by the employers to do a better paid jobs. So this is what we found so far. But automation is replacing the kind of repetitive tasks done by people. So it is replacing some sort of jobs, but
it's probably replacing jobs that people shouldn't probably be doing in 2023 of lifting heavy boxes for 8 hours a day, that at the end of a line, or that kind of role.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to that point, it should support the levelling up agenda, if you like, in that basically because you're upskilling jobs across the entirety of the UK, you're upskilling jobs within what would be potentially more traditional manufacturing areas. There is an opportunity there for actually increasing, opportunity in, away from the southeast and into other parts of the UK where manufacturing can thrive and flourish, but the roles within that manufacturing actually become higher paid and higher value.
Sure. I think some of the other myths, I think, James, you were going to think about this. So the fear of we don't want to buy the wrong thing.
Very much so. I think Mike very kindly touched on it before in terms of investing in demonstrations with brand agnostic staff from the MTC in this case, so that they can actually come and talk their problem, they can talk their process, and see examples and demonstrations that are much less scary than this idea of I need to automate, but I really don't know where to start. Yeah. And even though that the suppliers into the industry, which are our members, of course, or some of our members, understand that and behave extremely well and very professionally, there is something about being able to go to someone who automatically is on your side, because we just all want UK manufacturing to flourish.
Okay. Can I follow up on that one? Yes, because I think it's this is a comment on something that was said before as well. So I think for smaller businesses to start, where to start, it's a huge challenge, because the market of the providers and supports is quite confusing, to say the least. Some of our members use MTC and trained 80% of the workers when they digitalize and innovate, and it's amazing, but not all of them have access to the catapults, to some good innovation hubs. Made Smarter as well helps quite a lot of SMEs to get on that journey. And it's very, very important to have that advisory, non-partial, where to start. If it's like starting to do the lean manufacturing, small step, baby steps, and then maybe the banks and big projects. But I think I have one example of a small manufacturer who she invested in one robotic arm. It costed around 60k. The return on investment was within 1 year. So there are different projects for different businesses. It's very individual.
Yeah.
I think also not everyone needs a robot.
No,
absolutely
not.
That's just, it doesn't have to be a robot.
Automation is an enormous subject, and you could argue we've been on this journey in industry since the sort of Kennedy space race. There was one small company up in Lancashire who spent their entire value of their turnover on automating, and they were a subcontractor. So most people used to say, I'm glad they don't anymore, that the only justification for automation and so forth was if you were a mass producer. This is absolutely not true, as we've discussed in the group beforehand. So that they did small batch work, they didn't know what their next job was going to be, and they spent their entire turnover, they effectively bet the farm, but they won. And it's just gone from strength to strength in the last sort of 15 years. And they were like you, they were leading the way. And I think that there are examples of people who can absolutely smash these myths. But it's our job, as particularly in this forum, to be able to get that message out, to reduce the fear, be able to signpost them in a safe way, and let's just get some investment in UK manufacturing for the whole country's prosperity.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we've got an example of that automation isn't always the answer. Back in 2018, we invested in a new powder coating plant. And obviously, I went to 3 or 4 manufacturers to get the quotes. And the one manufacturer put 4 or 5 robots on to spray the wheelbarrow pans. And it was, I think, about £500,000 more than the other quotes that didn't have the robots. So it's not always the answer. But 99% of the time, I think it is. with
It's
that.
true, and it's the other thing is about timing.
Yeah, I think the problem was on that point, when they came to visit the factory, they saw the other robots. They thought, oh, they're into robots. We'll add some robots onto this plant. You know, we'll win the order through that. But it didn't give us the right answer for what we needed. It's simplify. We went
100%. So,
Yeah.
so the key is, even if it's not the right time to add robots or indeed other forms of automation, you should be thinking about it for the future. So a company that I won't mention their name of, that very, very famous in this country as an automotive manufacturer and perhaps in very high performance motorsport, their chief executive at the time insisted that they have a robot paint line for their high performance road cars. And the guy actually running it did as he was told so that they had the hospitality for them. But he said, we just weren't ready for them then. And we actually hand finish everything because that's where the technology is just now. Now, admittedly, this is sort of 5 years ago. And so it's really making sure that whenever you make an investment, you've got a really good solid business case to solve, because engineers get really excited about technology and shiny paint and fancy software. And indeed, it is exciting to some of us. But if you keep rooted and make sure that you are solving a business problem every time and you're hard-nosed about it, you really can't go that far wrong.
Some of the best examples I've seen of sort of the second project, the third project, beyond sort of when you've made that first investment in your first automation project, maybe with a partner, is where companies have actually invested in young people to actually be an automation lead within the business, you know, and actually employing someone to actually sort of take on automation projects. And generally they are slightly younger, because they've got kind of an open mind. Yeah, they're not necessarily understanding that the business has always done it that way. That's probably a dangerous way to think, isn't it? If you're trying to invest in new equipment and bring some new ideas into a business, you can't think that way. So by employing someone slightly younger with an open mind who can pull together a bit of a business case, rightly or wrongly, maybe missing a few things, but that's their learning experience then. And some of the best experience we've got is where companies have done that. We see the MTC training lots of people that could potentially do that in the future, you know. And it's kind of that adoption piece in the future is going to rely on those people. If we need to adopt thousands of robots more than we do now per year, you know, we need more people to actually deliver them.
As a business, one of our biggest risks long term is attracting young people into our business. We've got an ageing workforce. I think our average age is about 40 odd. Being in a family business, we're like, Marmite, you either love us or leave within a week. So we've got people who have been, you know, with the business since we first started, so it's encouraging the young people to get involved. And the only way, I mean, some young people say, "Oh, I don't want to do that," and they have never been inside a factory. I mean, I've got two young sons, one's 15 and one's 13, and they love it. They come during the summer holidays just to see the robots working, and it with their minds and with, you know, new technology, it attracts them. That's the only way to actually attract people, is going to see people, you know, see it in the raw environment.
100%. You'll be pleased to know that we spend a significant amount of money creating an education and training zone at MAC. So all the machines and the technologies there working as in a factory, and we bus in and we support schools to be able to afford to bring their students in, and we get about 3,000 students going round, shown round by our members' apprentices, not old people like me who would put them off, so that they can see the technology at first hand. Because I agree with you, I think it's probably the most exciting time to join manufacturing at the moment. The opportunities are enormous.
I totally agree. But the challenge that we've got is that the education system, as it stands right now, doesn't signpost or point children in the direction of manufacturing careers, if you like, or engineering careers. And you know, I think it's very much incumbent on organisations like Automate UK, like MTA, to basically go out there and spread the word. Obviously, we work through PPMA Best, and we go into schools and do STEM activities, and we actually take robots into schools, and not big industrial robots, but and actually try and switch children on at a young age to a potential future in a manufacturing career. But there's something certainly the government could be doing to support the curriculum around actually making that so it isn't incumbent on us the whole time, that there's a more central thought towards this.
And just to add to that, I think one of the challenges we have in the UK is a lack of engineers coming through the system. We're losing a lot at the moment purely because they're getting old and they're retiring, and we haven't got enough coming through the education process. And it's a slightly different angle in terms of robotics, but robotics is one of those subjects that gets the young children excited. So, we're trying to work with a company called Vex Robotics that runs schools robot competitions. I know FANUC are heavily involved in World Skills. Yeah. What we're trying to do there is just get the children interested in engineering type subjects, and hopefully we can help feed the pipeline, as it were, so that we get more coming through the process. And we're not talking about universities here. This is also about apprenticeships and technicians, because we need them probably more than we need the university educated engineers.
100%. And I think there's also the challenge of that, as you say, the dropout through the process, and be able to retain them once they've qualified and so forth at whatever level. It's being able to retain them, and that of course is incumbent on us and people in the industry, because the average pay is way above UK average. The chance to be able, the chances to be able to earn and learn at the same time are highly attractive. But frankly, I think we collectively need to do a better job in making it clear to the outside world that it's such an amazing opportunity, as we've been saying before. And this forum is a great example of things that we can really collaborate and do well at.
I think one of the things that two things I can probably add is that, say, as a manufacturer of automation equipment, we are taking steps to try and, first of all, engage with young people, put in place the challenge that they need. Most young people are competitive. We've got this program called World Skills, which is a competitive challenge for young people to try and learn robotics, put robotics into factories. Now, we see in the UK 100% growth year on year on that. It's growing at a huge rate. That helps massively. Last year we had just over 100 people initially take on the initial challenge, and at the final a few weeks ago, we had 24 in the final there, which is fantastic. Look at other countries. So France run their final with 128 students. It's a different scale, but we are getting there. And we will continue to sponsor that competition globally as FANUC. The second thing we're doing is with schools, colleges, universities, with the MTC, we're trying to align what we offer as a industrial training package with what the syllabus requires, and making sure that we can offer up equipment, content, assessment, and the training for the tutor as a package. Because again, what then that student can do when he finishes that 6-week course is say that actually I'm a trained FANUC robot programmer. I've got 30 credits because it's been assessed and accredited towards my apprenticeship. And the teachers thinking, well, that was brilliant. I've got the equipment. I've been trained how to deliver the content. I haven't had to spend my summer creating a course. That's really powerful. And I just think I'd say put the challenge out there to other manufacturers of equipment and say take up that challenge.
100%. Yeah. I think the World Skills thing is great. We have them at Mac, of course, but we also have something called the TDI Challenge, where the students and the teachers don't have to do any extra work for those who are doing design and technology within the syllabus at both levels. And we insist on a commercial angle, so that one of the big gaps in the UK traditionally has been we've been very imaginative and created lots of software, successful products and so forth, and then we've given them away effectively. And UK PLC hasn't benefited to the same amount as in other countries with a different culture. So we always insist on the commercial thing, and the finalists come to Yamazaki Mazak and have a mini exhibition where the judges go around as if they're at a show buying that product. So, and it always so impresses me how imaginative our future engineers are. It really fills me full of hope for the future.
Excellent. Right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first event, which we will be building on going forward. We'll be dialing down into more individual issues each time. I'd just like to say thank you very much to the fabulous panel, and I hope you have found that really useful. And if you need any more information going forward, I think probably the best thing is to contact Automate UK initially, and then we can filter that out to all the other organisations. In the meantime, I hope we see you at MAC. I hope we see you at all the events at Automation UK in June, at MVC. And I'd just like to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you too, Gail.
Thank you.